Are they?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
We're off mute. We're off mute.
Digging up the weapons.
Yeah.
The pitchforks are coming in. or-
They're light.
Record everyone.
I'll stay in this chair, right? Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order for this council meeting on July 9th, 2025. Have a mover and a seconder to open the meeting. Move by Councilor McInnes, seconded by Councilor Featherstone, that this meeting be opened at 6:01 p.m. All in favor? That's carried. Adoption of the agenda. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Clark, seconded by Councilor Featherstone. That the agenda presented to council and dated the 9th day of July 2025 be adopted as presented. All in favor? That's carried. Any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we will move into a public portion of our meeting. I'll look for a mover and a seconder. Oh, actually, do you have I need to read.
The CBO can do his report.
Yeah, do I need to read it and go into the public meeting first?
No,
Okay, this is the
We're
public
just-
portion of the meeting.
opening the public meeting.
I'll call on the CBO to provide the report, please.
Thank you very much. Good evening, your worship, councilors and members of the public. Tonight I present to you a report to make changes to the Township of Bonfield's building fees. Within this report, you will find the estimated cost of administering and enforcing the act, the amount of fee changes to existing fees and new classification of fees, and the rationale for imposing such fees for our building permits. I also have to mention that this information is available to all members of the public at no cost, according to the act. And we have the following. So in this report, there's firstly the cost of administering and enforcing the act within the municipality. In 2024, our total costs were just above $161,000, and our revenues were $66,950 roughly, and leaving us with a loss of over $96,000. Within that report also.
Is the meeting on?
It started at 6.
Mine says 7.
Yeah, we sent an email to say that it was at 6.
You know, I can't get my emails when I'm at work. I think I
The
told you.
email
that-
was last week. We sent an email last week.
That's okay, we really haven't done that.
Yeah, we haven't got into the
Yeah.
CBO is just doing his presentation of the building fees.
Good evening, your worship. So in that building fee report, there's also comparisons with neighboring municipalities for cost comparisons. And you will find in this building fee change report that except for the opening clause for the new proposed 2025-30 building fee schedule, all 2025 building fee changes presented here tonight either reflect new classifications of buildings that were previously not permitted in Bonfield, which now require a set of building fees for the issuance of a building permit, or the remaining fee changes are a reduction in building fees from the previous existing building fees. So the opening statement in the new building fee report adds a sentence that says, excluding residential occupancies, permit fees shall be $10 per $1,000 based on value of contract price. This is a fee structure that is used for commercial, industrial, and large agricultural projects, and it's not for dwellings. It's to protect the municipality for I'll give you an example. Somebody comes in and decides to do a large project that our fee schedule only charges, let's say $700. The building permit review from an outside source could come in the thousands of dollars, so the municipality would have to cover the rest of the cost. So this protects taxpayers from incurring that cost. It sends the cost to whoever. It's mostly for ICI construction, so it's not something you'll see, but it protects the municipality. For the remaining fees, the remaining changes are all drop in fees. We should start with the farm buildings. They were previously $1,500 per structure, which did not encompass the broad spectrum of farm buildings, because the building code has now implemented sections for incredibly large buildings under the agricultural sector. So it wouldn't be fair for a small farmer to pay $1,500 for a structure to perhaps to give shelter for a horse, and somebody could come in and put up an immense agricultural building, pay $1,500 as well. So the fee structure is broken down, and it gives relief to the small guy who wants to just build your basic farm that's under the farm code. And that's where the $10 per thousand comes in. Next, we have the residential fees. So this is for dwellings, semi-detached dwellings, duplex cottages, and also for our new ADUC is where you build an ADU, but it's larger than the existing home, and you flip the classifications of buildings. So previously it was a minimum of $4,000. Now that minimum will be dropping to $3,000. But there is also a per square meter charge. So the $3,000 covers up to roughly 2,000 square feet. So once you exceed 2,000 square feet, which is pretty large, then it incrementally goes up with the $1,722 per square meter, right? So at least $1,000 reduction. Next, we have additional dwelling units, which is now permitted under our new bylaw. The fee for a detached ADU is $1,500, which is half price from a regular dwelling. I've also added in there sheds less than 400 square feet. I felt that 500 was somewhat expensive for a basic shed. So that fee has dropped $100. And then we have your basic decks. That was 400. I thought that was a bit much in some cases. So we reduced it by $100 to 300. Next, we have hunt camps, which is a new classification of buildings, which is permitted under our new bylaw. The fee for a hunt camp where applicable, where it's permitted, would be $750. And then we have a conditional permit fee for accessory structures where it's intended to be constructed at the same time as a house. So conditional permit, it was actually 50%, but we've entered this new clause just to address accessory buildings. And below it, we did reduce conditional permit fees by half. It used to be 50% of the building fee, which is pretty expensive. So we dropped it down to 25%. And under our current building fees, there was a $350 charge for occupancy certificate upon occupancy inspection. That's something that we didn't charge. I don't charge for that. It's included in our current $4,000 fee, which covers that. So we're permanently removing it from that schedule. And then below that, we have minor residential projects, which used to be a $400 fee, and sometimes that's pretty exorbitant for just minor work. And in that, we've included residential shipping containers used as sheds. And we've also added, we're adding in for agricultural purposes for farmers, so we don't incur heavy fee. And any other shipping containers used for storage sheds for commercial industrial applications, it would be $700 included. So that's pretty much it. That wraps it up. So in 3 years from now, it's estimated in 3 years from now, there will be a review of these building fee changes. to be evaluated to determine if they met our expectations or if changes to these fees need to be readjusted, because it's anticipated and hoped by us that the new classifications of building, those revenues will offset the reductions that we're proposing tonight. But we will see, we'll see, because we don't. Right? So, and in conclusion, we have to say that these proposed building fee reductions demonstrate that building permit fees can be reduced if building permit revenues increase. So it's important for everybody to obtain building permits when they decide to undertake construction projects, to keep the permit fees as low as possible. And the offside to that is if the fees are not recovered through building permits, then the taxpayer subsidizes the construction projects, which we want to try to avoid, correct? So, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Well,
He doesn't.
I just have a couple of things to say. Okay, so, there was a sign, that came in. This is where we would address that at 700. So that would be for any sign. But is this where we would put that in?
Yes, yes, so
Okay,
sorry,
okay.
I forgot that.
That's okay.
Part. So we did have an applicant lately who wanted to install a basic sign. And we found that our building fee schedule was $700 for a basic sign, which is pretty exorbitant as well. So under the last proposal for shipping containers, where it's $200 for residential, $700 for industrial, we will propose that a basic sign not requiring to be designed by a professional engineer shall be brought into the 200, and a sign will make a provision for that $700 fee that's to encompass only signs that are designed by a professional engineer according to the code.
Right.
Yeah,
How,
makes sense.
how big would that sign be if it doesn't have to be designed by an engineer?
So if it exceeds 113 kilogram and it's attached to a building, attached to a parapet, that type of fashion, based on weight, mostly in size, yes, then it has to be designed by an engineer. So your basic road signs, you see basic signs, they don't fall within that.
So like a 4x8 wouldn't need.
No.
Okay.
Just like if you see like a Topper's pizza store and you see the great big illuminated signs, they're excessive in weight. They have to be designed by a professional engineer if they are overweight in size. So yeah.
Jason, I have a question.
So a good report. I appreciate it. I appreciate the comparisons, and I appreciate providing the amount of information you have. So just to summarize for my benefit. So we have two new elements between hunt camps and ADUs where we, the work that we did previously, allowing hunt camps in the rural zones where previously they were not allowed. That is a new element of this, which is a $750 fee, building permit fee, and ADUs, which again was not permitted in our municipality before, is now permitted. And that's $1,500, which is half the cost. So if somebody wants to build an additional dwelling on their property, the permit fee would be half of what it would have been for the initial structure, or would be for an initial structure at this point. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And every other fee that we are dealing with tonight, anything that we are adjusting, has all gone down
Yes,
from its current state. Everything has been reduced.
except for the opening clause, which deals with ICIs.
Right, which
Yeah,
we
won't see.
will, right.
Yeah, so
Yep.
yes, yeah, they've all
Appreciate
been
it.
reduced.
Thanks, that's good news. Thank you.
Anybody else? I have a question with respect to the sea containers. So that is $200 a permit, but that's not every year. That's
No, that's a
$200
building
to put
permit.
the sea container on your property unless it's a larger one, right?
So the $200 is for a shipping container that exceeds 161.45 square feet.
And that's
That's a one-time thing,
a one-time thing.
just like a shed permit. That's essentially, that's what it is. It's a shed.
Okay,
It's just for clarity, like they typically come 8x20 or 8x40. 8x20s, no permit required. 8x40
if there's a dwelling on the property.
If there's, fair, if there's a dwelling on the property, thank you. If it's 8 by 40, then there's building
It
fee.
requires a building permit.
Right, thank you.
You have to have an engineer's inspection for that?
Yeah, so I tried to implement my own standards and I contacted Toronto. And they said under a chief building official, I don't have the authority to implement the standard building standards. So I wanted to make it easy for everyone. My main concern was venting of the structure. And I wanted to say that you needed 2 square feet of venting, and they said, I don't have the authority to do that. And they said, unfortunately, because it's not a building that's prescribed in the building code, has to be done through part 4 of the act, which is engineered.
Okay.
So it'd be nice to perhaps have a blanket letter from an engineer. I don't know if we can achieve that. We'll try, certainly try to offset any cost, but we'll have to visit that.
Okay.
You have a question? No.
No, I think I would just like to point out that there's a lot of detail in the June, I believe, 13th meeting that the corporate services meeting around the recovery rate. And so we're not at 70% recovery. So I mean, we're allowed up to the 100%, and we're not. I would like to acknowledge Leanne Chadburn. She does great work, and she does a lot of research, and so she's has sent us a letter, and just wanted to mention that the 3,000 includes the $350 occupancy fee that would have been above and beyond that. So, at 3,000, that's all inclusive, which is good. And again, it's at about 41%. If we took everything into consideration, we're at 41% recovery rate right now. So.
Do you have any comment?
Nope.
Other comment?
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't see this letter until now.
We can give
The
you
next
some-
section in the agenda is for the public comment period.
Yeah, we
Pardon?
read.
Yeah, so the next section on the agenda is for the public comment
Okay.
period. So if you open up that, then Leanne has asked me to read this.
I just thought it'd be interesting to see what was said.
Yeah, so the CAO was gonna read
We're
it in
gonna-
the public comment section of the meeting.
But
She's gonna read
that's-
it all out
Yeah,
loud.
But we're accepting the report, right? Now,
no.
Well, we can accept the report, but then the public consultation happens.
Yeah.
And then we vote on whether the first and second reading.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so you can vote on the first and second, the report is done, so now you can vote on the first and second reading of the bylaw and then move into the public.
but we accept the report now, right?
I don't think there's a motion.
According to
Oh,
Whitler.
yeah. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sarah.
and
you're
it moves the first and second.
Yeah,
reading,
first
yeah.
and second reading, which has to happen before we can have a public
Yeah.
consultation section. So yeah, procedurally, we have to pass
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
first and second, right?
Okay, I need a Milburnus. Okay. Moved by Donna Clark, seconded by Jason Corbett. Be it resolved that the council of the township of Bonfield hereby receives the report from the chief building official regarding the proposed building user fees, and further that bylaw 2025-30 is hereby considered read a first and second time this 9th day of July. All in favor? Carried. I'll just take this out. Okay, so that's this motion. And then public comment period is now.
So we have received one letter from a constituent who was hopeful to attend, but she wasn't able to. She did ask me if I could read it. But we've received no other comments.
That's all we're saying,
Yeah.
that's the one.
Absolutely. So if not, I can start. So it says attention, Township Council, Mayor, Mary Paquette, Councilors Clark, McGinnis, Featherstone, and Corbett. Read the discussion on changes proposed to the building fees. So good evening, your worship, councilors, and members of the audience. I am voicing my concerns with respect to the proposed changes to the building fees. The main takeaway here is although the minimum permit fee on residential builds has been reduced from 4,000 to 3,000, this still leaves a penalty to the younger generation and or minimalists who wish to build smaller homes. Once again, I am attempting to point out that this is not reasonable or justifiable in a time that the Ontario government is promoting the build of tiny homes to reduce the amount of homelessness families within the province. Also, I would note the rate per square meter in this township is higher than most similar townships. To implement a minimal fee that penalizes people who wish to provide a home for their family as economically as possible during the time of an unstable economy is unreasonable. When you calculate the differences between obtaining a building permit for a 2,500 square foot home versus an 850 square foot home, the differences are as follows. The 2,500 square foot or 232.25 square meter home at $1,722 a square meter fee is $3,999.34, while the smallest permitted home of 850 square feet or 78.96 square meters at $1,722 a square meter fee equals $1,359.69 or minimal charge of $3,000, which brings a penalty of $1,640.31. The average home of 1,600 square feet or 148.64 square meters at $1,722 per square meter fee equals $2,559.76 or the minimum charge of $3,000, which penalizes the owner by $440.25. The essence of this proposal is unfair to the people who are trying to build shelter for their family in the most economical way that they can at this time. By building a smaller home now, at least they can provide much needed shelter to their family. Given the high cost of living, that dream home is simply not attainable for most families in today's economy. Once the homes are built, the recovery then comes from the additional tax base from those homes. With these minimal permit fees, people will not be able to build, therefore taxes will be increased to cover off further basic costs. I believe this has proven true since the tax rate has been increased 3% this year, noting that building permits issued this year were down substantially. It is important to note that no other township charges a minimal fee that would not be attainable by the smallest permitted build. Why then would our council, who are here to represent the people of this township, ever agree to allow this to happen and push through the passing of this by, let alone the 2024 bylaw? With respect to farm buildings noted in the building fee report attached to the agenda, Bonfield is still considerably higher than other townships within the vicinity by 50%, plus in the majority of the comparables. Other factors that ought to have been reviewed include the extraordinary list of fees that were noted on the 2024 building permit fees, which have not been reviewed for 2025, nor has reconsideration occurred with respect to the rate per square meter. All these fees are higher than what similar townships within our immediate vicinity are charging. It is important to encourage growth within the township, and these amendments to the 2024 building fees suggested, although a start, are not sufficient. It is time to look at cutting costs rather than continually raising costs and taxes to the constituents. Due to personal reasons beyond my control, I'm unable to allocate much time to this, and therefore I'm unable to speak to other points that ought to be considered. Given that this is the first public meeting regarding these amendments to the 2024 building fees, I would hope that the constituents will be granted a further 21 days to respond so that this matter can be reviewed by the public rather than it going to the second or third reading at one meeting, thereby thwarting comments from the public. Thank you again for your time. Leanne Smith, Chadford.
Any comments from anybody with respect to the letter?
Sure. I applaud Leanne, like she has, like I say, like Donna Clark was saying, spent a lot of time on this, even from last year. I do agree with some of the things that she's saying, but things like our tax percentage going up just because we didn't issue as many building permits. Building's kind of down everywhere right now. Like the Gagners last year built like 70 something homes, and this year they're building like 15. You know, it's a lot lower everywhere. I'm sure it has something to do with cost of materials, right?
Cost of everything. Building's expensive. I mean, the other thing, I mean, Leanne keeps referring to surrounding municipalities. I think Mike's compared to surrounding municipalities, and we're in the middle. We're not high, we're not low, we're in the middle. So I don't know what other municipalities she's comparing to, but
Yeah, she does make a point with respect to the lower or less homes being built in 2024 than 2023, and the value as well is quite a big difference. And I think I've asked before, is that because of the increase in the permits? Because there's in the values, there's $6 million difference between 2023 and 2024. So I think it is a good question, and certainly this time we want to be sure to get it right, that we don't have to come back and lower it again. And at this time, it's so hard to build a home or to have homes for your children. And I'm just wondering if we have went as low as we could go and still cover our expenses. I see in part of the report that if we didn't cover the expenses, we'd have to look to it in other places. And I don't know where we could look to it. Sure, don't want to put any more user fees out there than what we have to. So that's my thoughts on it. Jason?
yeah, I appreciate your thoughts on that, for sure. And for me, it's always a balance between what should be applied as a user fee versus what should be applied to the general taxes. So it's always a balance. And I remember early on in this mandate with this council, we talked about a 70% cost recovery of user fees or building permits. And we have not been able to meet that threshold yet. We are well below the 70% threshold, which means we are struggling with wanting to ensure that we're keeping our fees and our building fees at a reasonable level. So we're not going to meet that 70% threshold, and yet not wanting to pass that burden on to the general taxpayer. There's only so many sources of revenue. There they are. It's either user fees or a general tax base. So for every dollar that we don't recoup from a building permit fee or a user fee, it goes straight onto the tax base. So it's paid by the general electorate. Now, I concur that there is an element of that absolutely should happen so that we can remain competitive, making sure that we can attract new build and grow the municipality. And I think that's why you see us at nowhere close to the 70%. And that's also why when you look through the comparators, we are on average right in the middle. There are some we're low. There's one, I think, the farming building fee, we are the highest. We are higher than Mattawa by $63 when you do the math. So yes, but we're also lower in a lot of other avenues. So I can appreciate the complexity of this, and I appreciate where Leanne's coming from to advocate to try and keep them as low as we possibly can. I would like to as well, and yet we face the reality of needing to run a municipality and be honorable to our general taxpayers and not making sure that we're shifting too much of that burden to our current residents as well. And I think we've struck that balance, so I'm confident with the report and comfortable with the numbers as they are currently.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add, like, comparing 2023 to 2024, COVID was prime, the economy went crazy buying houses and building houses.
We're back
Not
on.
very acceptable.
I
But
just
those are
have
the
to
best
go back
ones.
to record, to make sure we're on YouTube. We're still recording. Can she hear us now?
Okay, no.
Take two.
Okay, sorry.
So, as I was saying, I believe sometimes yesterday afternoon, I received a third, proposal, for but it was just slightly higher. So I'm not gonna bring up the, person that submitted and the dollar value. The report's already in and then it doesn't change, what's in front of us. These, they're basically precast structures. They're concrete L-shaped abutment. So it's a shape that's got the L shape itself. Once ordered, they would be then delivered to the municipality. And ultimately speaking, we're ready to just take them, do the construction, install them in place. And these two abutments, being two L shapes, they have a bearing pad, which is an elastomatic absorber for the energy. And what they do is that the concrete, no, the steel deck, in this case, the modular bridge would come and sit on those two. So the price that we have in front of us is the lowest is Northern Mat and Bridge, which is 46, including 46,459, including taxes. I'm kind of showing that it's approximately 1137 millimeter, a bit more than a meter wide, and the length of it is 7.6 meters. So just slightly longer than the deck itself, as the deck will sit in just slightly inward. So the recommendation is, to authorize, so that we can come into an agreement, to give them the authorization to proceed so that they can start the fabrication of these two concrete structures. And ultimately they would be delivered to the municipality. And then we would be ready to install them along with the next report, which talks about the modular bridge and also provides a bit more of the total cost breakdown of what we're expecting. And that's about it on that first report. I don't know if there's questions from council about specifically what this entails. I can clarify if I missed, if there's further questions on
Any
specific.
question?
That one's just on the abutments, right?
It's the two end abutments that, so separately now we have, on the next report, we have the modular bridge cost. But now we also have the confirmed abutment cost as well.
So I guess total project, we're around $450,000.
Yeah, so this is gonna be a lot more, and then you're right, absolutely. So as I go through the next report, we'll have a full breakdown of it. And actually, so this project had been done in a subcomponent. So we basically dissected all the sections of it, and then we've tendered out all the components. So the first one is for the abutments. And the second report is in dealing with the modular bridge. So that's the steel deck, that's the modular bridge, and that's the one that would eventually come and sit right on the inside of these two abutments. So I could jump into that report if you'd like me to kind of go over the cost as well.
Yeah, I just didn't notice on any of the itemized lines, I didn't notice anything about taking down the other bridge or getting rid of any of the debris or anything like that. Is that all included?
It kind of falls under item 4,
Okay.
because item 4 has the summarization of what it includes is the demolition, the aggregates, the granular material, the erosion control, the construction equipment, the labor and mobilization and demobilization costs. So really, to take away the existing, we're trying to capture all that under number 4.
Perfect, thank you.
And these two items are they always done separately?
No, so that's an interesting question. And I mean, what happens is there's more than one way to deal with construction. One of the things that sometimes we would do is just basically request a tender where every single component comes as part of the bid, and it's one bid, and it's turnkey, and it's there could be a lot of variance in from one contractor to another.
Mhm.
This one, a little bit contrary to this, is like we've structured every single component, and we went out to the specific vendors, and instead of having one main contractor that would kind of put its own markup on every second, like every own like sub components of it, there's no markup. So we're kind of managing, but essentially it's like if I have a superstructure like we've done before in the past, the last one I think was on Development Road. So that structure would have been probably in the order of $100,000. So we went out, requested some prices, and then we got one or two bids, and we purchased the structure, and there was some variance in the price of the structure. So we took advantage of saying, okay, there's two or three prices. We're gonna buy this one. It's the equivalent, and it's for less. So we managed it, we controlled it.
And there were no issues between vendors? So, because one has to finish before one can start, right?
So the constructor in this case will be the contractor, and then once he shows up on site, as long as everything's here and ready to start, there should be no issues. If a contractor says, okay, we're gonna start in 2 months, and they show up and then, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the bridge, it's still being delivered, you're gonna have to sit and wait 2 weeks. Well, that's when the problem would start.
But in this case, is
It's the same.
it's the
right?
same
It's
company
same
doing the
company,
abutments.
It happens to be the same.
Yeah.
They're both supplying. We're gonna make sure that we have the timing, like we have some timelines more specifically on the modular deck. And that's the idea. So once we award, okay, here's, now we have a signed contract, we have an approval with the delivery date. And once we have those deliveries, then we can start working towards the construction component to say, we cannot start prior to such a.
So is Northern Mat gonna be doing the construction end of this? Or I see where it says different contractor awards.
That's right.
Items 3, 4, 5 by a different contractor.
So essentially, if I dive into those, I would say that the guide rail component would be a separate contractor.
Sure.
Right now, like these are actually official quotes. So number 3 is actually an official quote. We reached out, there's a company that we deal with a lot, Centennial Contracting. They do pretty much all the guide rails that I know. They're local. We can also reach out to others, but they're a local company, and then they quoted the work. They've done many of our, anytime we have rehab repairs, I personally reach out to them. The dollar amount is, we talked about budget and cost and the way things have changed. There's a perfect example. I mean, that cost in itself is a lot more money than it would have been 2-3 years ago. But essentially, they're competitive, and these are basically competitive rate pricing. So this is a rate that was quoted to me, number 3, so we can retain them. I already have the numbers. I know that would be my cost. A little side note to this one, does not include the end treatment. We had with your CEO a long discussions on this. It's well, I'll say the word crazy. I know I'm on record, but the end treatment of those 4 corners are the energy attenuators. Not that many years ago, they used to be $4,000 a piece installed. Now they're $65 a piece installed. If I drop to the one that's a little bit of a, I guess I want to say maybe lesser grade. So if I want to go to the premium, top of the line, then they're about $10,000 a piece. So you get 4 times 10 is 40,000. The thing that I don't like with those is that once you own it, you're stuck with it. And if somebody by accident runs into it and you have a police report, well, by luck, you can do a claim through the insurance. But if it's done, hit and run, nobody shows up and then it's on your own dime. I'll give you credit, Nikki, because you mentioned something that's really smart. And then perhaps we said, well, there's one lane that's more at risk, the ingoing lane. In Ontario and Canada, we usually drive on the right side. So if we take that, then we can say, well, maybe the right side, might be wise to install the attenuator on this side, and perhaps like we forget the other side. But if we do it in an educated way. Like, it's not that we just didn't know, is that we say, well, we don't want to take that cost on, right? Because once you own it, once you have it, what's installed, you have to maintain it. You can't just get rid of it. There's other ways. I like the cost of a speed limit sign. And then I like to sometimes say, well, why don't we just drop the speed a little bit before and after the bridge? And that's $100. So, so, I mean, there's different avenues, different ways, right? And I think what happens too is like, you have to kind of say, okay, your roads, they're low volume roads. Okay, they have a small amount of traffic. It's not the 401. Right? So it comes a point that you say, okay, I don't meet the standard today. I'm substandard. We're going to keep on adding the OSIMS report. Part of that report has to say that, well, you don't have the proper guide rail system. And it's like, well, it's not false. It's true. But the question becomes, okay, as the owner of that infrastructure, like, when do I make the call that we want to go as if it's a 4-lane highway, 401 all everywhere, right? Or perhaps sometimes it's, well, maybe we can get away with putting some additional markers. In this case, we're extending by 2 different lengths of guide rails. So we're extending the length. So if somebody really had an accident, well, there's an increased distance, almost 78 meters in total. So, we are putting some safety factors in a sense right now. So I kept that item as kind of not in the budget, but I showed it. However, I did mention I have a contingency. Things go well. That means really well, because it's 30,000 versus 23, right? So that's $7,000. So if I overspend something by $7,000, I still have some room. But this one, I would kind of make a recommendation that we, as we go through the project, as we get towards the end, it's not the cherry on the sundae, but the guide rail is one of the last thing that goes in. So we can kind of reevaluate and say, okay, you know what, things are good. What do we do? Do we do both? Do we do 4? Do we go
And we're widening the bridge as
That's
from
right.
the current state. So I mean, it's gonna be a double lane instead of a single lane. So-
Very much so, and that's true. Like, so we're getting like a 7.5, 7.6 some meter. which
Right.
Officially 6 meters is the normal width of 2 lanes. So absolutely. So we're widening.
So,
That's all
yeah,
in here.
yeah,
That's
I
all.
just, like I'm saying, so you're not squeezing in, you're not squeezing in, so the end treatments, are not as big, they don't play as big as a role.
That's right. And I mean, just to say, you've got a new employee per storm, the wings out, a little too close, there's 10,000. I mean, so those are the things that sometimes I just want to say, with caution, we have to kind of look at it, and then,
This is the price barring any unforeseen circumstances according to this, right?
well, like I said, I feel pretty confident that there shouldn't be really any, it's a relatively simple project. Because as soon as you're not in water, and this is a not in water work, because we're working behind the existing abutment, we did our geotech, we know there's blasted rock that's 4 or 5 feet deep. So those big blasted rocks, we're expecting them. We know we're gonna dig down beside, like, until we reach them. We're gonna backfill with good type 2 material, and then we'll be able to sit these abutments. So generally, it's a pretty, so I feel pretty confident that we should be in that order of dollars.
And I see, we were talking about a grade raise, that like to raise the bridge, so we're not digging down as deep.
That's right. And then that's the thing too that we did, and it is some sort of a analysis there for the, because I understand that someone was busy here, I think. council as well. June 21st, nobody will forget that date.
Yeah.
So the water went over, I believe.
Yes,
That's my understanding.
Yeah.
The water went over, so, if you think of hydraulics, like the opening area of the bridge, it's a box structure. And then right now, what's gonna happen is, it's gonna come up. We're gonna cut the, two sides, and then we're gonna open it up. I put a little picture in, the second page, I think. So when you look at that picture on the second page, you get a little feel that, well, currently it's only 3.6 meter wide. I mean, if I run fast, I can almost jump over, right? So 3.6 meter wide. And the new one, the length of will be 9.35. So it's relatively a lot more wider. So that opening in itself will be 148% wider, just the area, like just doing a box rectangular area versus the future area of the opening. So that's a lot wider. And the fact that it's coming up at least a foot, we have some restriction on the geotechnical, because the geotechnical was making a recommendation that try not to go more than a foot, because there's going to be some differential settlement, and they were a little concerned with that. So I mean, do I go 0.4 meters? Maybe if I can push a little bit my limit. I'm sure we'll have discussions with Englo. And then we'll talk about that. You know, am I really limited to a foot, or is there a little room to play? So essentially, the bridge will come up a foot for sure. If we can gain a little more, we'll try. But the opening area is going to be drastically different, like much more bigger. I don't anticipate that it would be the very similar type of storm again. I mean, you know, if you think of it, it's about 85 to 90 millimeter that came down in 1 hour, and 100-year storm is 46. So 90 divided by 2 is 45. So it's like, you know, twice the amount of water than 100-year.
but that said, Sunridge and Magnetawan are dealing with the exact same thing right now
That's right.
from a different storm.
Exactly. And then
I think that's the new norm.
Yeah.
it's crazy, huh? So, but I mean, essentially, well, the odds, let's put it that way, if we're lucky, you're not gonna have it right
Yeah,
now.
and I mean, I think it's a great thing that you're taking in consideration building into the future. I mean,
Yeah.
you always make it bigger and better.
So that will take care of that part. The other unconfirmed number, item 5, paving, kind of actually came in. I did receive 2 quotes. I don't have to go through them, but it came in that order of dollar cost actually. So I was pretty happy with that. And engineering, that includes other parties as well. It includes testing and the permits and everything that entails with that as well.
Jason wanted to know if you couldn't reuse any part of the bridge.
The existing
The
one-
railings look great, don't
The
they?
railings are, well, I mean,
Hey,
you can.
don't you think we
can
could reuse this?
Probably post it on like.
Gov deals, yeah.
Gov deals.
Yeah.
Yeah, go deal, yeah.
They keep 3.5%.
Yeah.
Are these pre-built, like it's a structure 30 by whatever? Are they built already, or is that something we order and then?
Once you order it, they will construct it. The one that we're talking about is also within standard specifications. It's not like one that's like outside the chart. So if I were to say, okay, give me your menu, and then I will say, okay, I would like to, you go down and I'd like to have this one. If, for instance, you were to say, okay, I'd like one that has a 45 angle skew, this and that, and maybe a little longer, then they would have to manufacture it. So the answer is that I didn't ask. There's always a possibility that, yes, maybe there is one just like that sitting and available. I don't know. But it is one that would be a standard size.
Yeah.
However, I think we had a date of delivery. I believe we had an anticipated date of delivery in the response that we received. But then again, I forgot now. Anyhow, this is something that once we sign the contract, we will clarify it and update as well.
It was the last report you did.
In one of the last.
So I guess my question
You
is,
said eight, almost a week, sorry.
yeah, 2 months. So my question is, if we order, we can get this done this year.
It's essentially because of the fact that we're not in water,
We can work.
it takes out the concern of those permits, of
Right.
those restriction, because the cold water, warm water, like. So in the sense, like right now, because we're not working in water, while even if the conservation would say, oh, you're not allowed to work in water during the middle and September pass, right? But in this case, it's not relevant. We can still, yeah, so essentially, yes, we can get this work done. The only negative impact is that, well, I mean, obviously, if we're starting mid-September and then, school has started, right? So there's gonna be
Yeah,
buses.
but
So there's a temporary,
Three-way though.
there's,
We've got a detour.
yeah,
I
it's-
mean, it's the cost, it's just
Yeah.
part of it.
that's right.
But
It's a little element that sometimes it's nice to do it in the summer because, school buses are not affected. But in this particular case, as you see, you also have like quite a lot of ways around. So
Right.
it's, but I just wanted to mention that, there's gonna be, we like to do construction before school. In this case, well, it's gonna start a little bit in fall and, yeah, so.
And then the other question is the 90,000 for number 4, that's like, do we have pricing from somebody or is that a realistic number or?
I believe so. I tried to look at, because you're thinking of the demo, the timeline, it's about a 2 weeks period of time. The amount of material is not extreme. I think one of the things that would maybe somewhat affect that numbers is the more that we want to raise. Because then maybe the more we want to raise, then it's on the approaches. And I mean, ultimately speaking, if it came to that, I think, well, first of all, I do have a bit of that contingency that if we don't use it for the guide rail, we got a bit more room. Ultimately speaking, there's also, we can have a follow-up discussion saying, okay, well, where do I get the source of that aggregate?
Right.
Should we get it here instead, a bit less? Should it be maybe discussion with the contractor? Well, what if we have someone drop it off or deliver? There's ways, I
Yep.
think, to negotiate because then we got full control, really, I would think.
And none of that can be done in-house. I'm good at demolishing.
I mean, that's another alternative. The only challenge that goes along with it, and I mean, I'm not gonna answer the question specifically, but I mean, if you're, how would I say, if you're committing your crew to be there for 2 weeks, well, then, of course,
Other things
It's
aren't
doable.
getting done, yeah.
but then that becomes a bit of a challenge. But, is this within the capacities?
I was thinking
Totally.
Nipissing could do it.
In light of what just went on, I think Alex has his hands full.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? So if you fall behind on the maintenance part and then it's because you got other things, that's the only element. But as far as capacities, absolutely, like.
Yeah, I just think now with the storm,
Yeah,
there's
I mean-
still a lot, even though we're functional, there's
Yeah.
still lots of
We're,
ditching and cleaning up on hills to prevent.
we're definitely
future.
completely capable and confident to do it, but I just don't think time's on our side
Yeah,
for this. I
no.
think it'd be better to leave it to the contractor. That way staff can complete the projects that we've been trying to complete over the last 2 years in-house.
Yeah.
Kind of button that stuff up rather than push everything to the wayside to try and get this done. That's just my opinion though.
Yeah, I think it's the right opinion. You got too much on your plate right now. So, I mean, with this storm, it didn't help.
So that figure in our motion is 217,149.84. That's for the actual structure, not taking anything else into consideration, right? And,
So what it
Okay.
is it captures on the summary page of the report that gives you the breakdown on page 3. The report for the modular bridge would deal with the modular bridge deck number item 1. And that's a confirmed dollar value. Also, what goes right under the bridge, the L-shaped concrete, which is the abutment, which is also separate report, but a confirmed amount for item 2. So item 2 has been confirmed as well. Item 3 is
Can I just
also
jump in
confirmed.
for a second?
Yes, absolutely.
We have the information for the abutments, so I've added it here on the motion. So if I can give you this, you can read this motion. And that would allow the same company to construct the bridge and the abutments.
At the same
So that we
time,
could get them within 6 weeks.
right?
Item 1 and 2 are the ones that you will have a motion to carry forward for today.
Yes, so that's that revised motion.
So basically, I think everything like,
Okay.
item 5 is a locked-in price.
Item 5, at 5, I
Well,
honestly, I've got within a few $100s under that
Sure.
amount, that's been confirmed. So I have a contractor that gave me the quote, so that item 5, I have a confirmed item, dollar value already. The guide rail as well, it's not on the report, so 3 and 5 is not on the report today, but we have received and we can deal with them separately at
So-
a for future.
so all your numbers are like,
Everything is,
they're legit numbers.
that's right.
They're all quoted numbers, so
Yeah.
there should be no surprises.
Not any big ones.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't, I really do believe that, the numbers that we have, and I provided a quote from the, like say, from the guide rail, company. So that's also a fixed number. There's, I received both quotes from the paving companies as well. Honestly,
The 90,000 is the only one that's a little bit in the air.
that's a little bit in the air. There's some contingencies to make up for it. Engineers, well, don't have to pay them, so you can always. And then,
Essentially, item 1 and 2, right?
and that's right. And also, how was I gonna say? Well, like for the asphalt, what we did is we provided that we would go a certain distance, and we're very conservative in quite a good, quite a good setback distance. We're not doing like a kilometer or, but we're just doing,
Right.
I think it's, trying to remember how much, I think it's close to the 50 meters on both approaches, which is a little too much, almost, like I would say. So if there is some other items that become a bit of a concern, well, then we can always come back.
Narrow it up a bit.
With the construction of the 90 as well, like I can say, well, what if I outsource the riprap and the gravel and I purchase it, separately or part of one of the tender items we have, and say, okay, well, we're gonna stockpile 10 loads of, so we have control. So the next item for the construction, I can still dissect it into 2. Like I can say, okay, I'll get the material ourselves and,
Right, we can bring the material to the contract.
yeah.
Like item 1 and 2, right? That's 70%, I'd say, of the overall project. Without the deck or the abutments, we
Right.
can't do anything, right?
That's right.
So.
Yeah, there's one little tiny change that I don't think will affect the modular deck. But what it is that I had a price to put in a membrane on the steel deck, so that down the road, after 30 years, when the asphalt's falling apart, you can actually remove the asphalt. But the price of that membrane is like in the order of $30,000. So I said, I'm not doing that. So instead, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna pave either a thicker lift or lifts and 2 lifts on the deck. So I have like angle iron on the sides to hold the asphalt. So I may tell them that, hey, listen, can you give me the angle iron to go up a little more thicker kind of thing? So, they're probably gonna say, that's okay, we're not gonna increase our cost because they're gonna put 2 little angle irons to hold the thickness of the asphalt.
Right.
So I'm gonna say, well, no, I was gonna go 2 inches, now I'm gonna go like 3.
Or we could always do an HL8 base, right? And then 3 top coats. So,
That's right.
yeah, it's a lot easier that way.
So essentially, I forgot, I said, no, I'm not gonna do the plastic membrane because it's too expensive. And one of these days, in 20 plus some years, when that becomes potholes on the surface, you can mill the upper layer and then repave. So this way, we're saving that.
You don't need the membrane, because we're just
That's
gonna mill the top and
That's
the
right.
asphalt.
It's a different kind of way to kind of save that. Because again, another item, I never imagined in my life that, putting a little rubber something on the deck would be 30,000. I just didn't
Right.
think of it. So then the quote we adjusted, we said, well, give us two options, one with it, one without. And that's what kind of drove the fact that, yeah, no, we're definitely on it. So, yeah.
Any more questions?
Want to open a membrane business with me?
No. Not
Well,
the bridge.
maybe
Yeah,
we'll do
yeah.
one bridge a year. So I'm not so good at that.
I didn't get in, I kind of got below it, didn't fit in there as well. I need him over in a seconder, please. Jason? Dan? Since you asked the most questions, we better. Okay. This is the RFP for Trunk Road Bridge. Antoine Boucher attended our meeting. Thank you very much. Moved by Jason Corbett, seconded by Dan McGinnis. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Bonfield hereby receives the report from the municipal engineer Antoine Boucher regarding the tender submissions for Trunk Road Bridge, and further that Northern Mat and Bridges be awarded the contract for the purchase of the bridge in the amount of $217,149.84, including all taxes, and further that the quote submission from Northern Mat and Bridge for the bridge abutments in the amount of $46,459.06 be accepted. All in favor? Carried. Give that one back to Nikki. I copied it over here. Okay, so then where's my agenda? Next, we have that, and then we have adjournment. So do I have a mover for that, Steve?
Wow.
Andre.
What time is it, Jason?
It is 7:08.
Next, we have the adjournment moved by Steve Featherstone, second by Dan McGinnis, that this meeting be adjourned at 7:08 PM. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everybody, for attending the meeting, and thank you,